Okay. All right, 6:03. All right, I'd like to officially welcome everybody to the APTA annual board meeting recap call. Um, we had our annual board meeting this year in Cleveland in May, and I have to say, we can talk about this after the call. I think the highlight of the meeting was for sure being able to play and get to know the Cleveland Flats board members and get to play at the new forecourt public facility with the multi-use sort of hut classroom. It was awesome. It was a great weekend in Cleveland. And I think the purpose of this call is really to let you all, our members, know, what sort of how we performed, what we did last year, and then more importantly, to let you know what we voted on, what our strategic initiatives are for the coming year. So we welcome two new board members, one of which I see is, I think, on the call. Josh Kreitzler from the Chicago area is coming on the board to head up our sponsorship committee. So welcome, Josh. And then we have Andrew Haynes from New Jersey, who is coming on to take over our IT technology chair position. So welcome to those two board members. We're very lucky to have you. Appreciate your time. So anyway, with that, I'm going to kick it over to Amin Kaduri, the CEO, just to talk about sort of our prior year performance and our budget for this coming year.
Great. Thanks, Tiernan. Hi, everyone. We'll just start with our membership numbers. So our membership grew to about 32,000 this year, up about 10.5% versus last year. And a lot of the membership growth is continuing to be driven less so, but still driven by new leagues coming in. We had the Baltimore Women's League, Detroit Women's League, the Grosse Pointe, and Washington D.C. were all new leagues requiring APTA membership. We also had quite a few individual clubs like the Columbia Country Club, Oakland Hills in Detroit, joining as clubs in all their intra club play. The other drivers really for membership for this year were really both the Chicago and Philadelphia regions. So regions 3 and 5 really grew the fastest, but overall about 10.5%. And so this is our revenue chart, 5 years plus the furthest right column is next season's budget. So this past season we came in at 1.16 million for revenue. That was about $70,000 higher than expected. We had been budgeting for about 6% revenue growth. This coming season, we're budgeting about 8% revenue growth overall. And again, most of that is really driven by continued growth in membership. Our expenses, again, the 5 years plus the furthest right column is next season's budget. Our expenses for the 2022-2023 season came in almost exactly in line, within $10,000 of our budget. So overall, with our revenues being a little higher than budget and our expenses being a little lower than budget, instead of about a $40,000 loss that we had budgeted, we came in closer to about a $30,000 gain for the year. You will see here our expenses are budgeted to be up meaningfully for this year. Our revenues are budgeted up 8%, but our expenses are budgeted up a little over 19%. And so this next slide here, I'll just go into why our expenses are going up and where that money is being spent. So 3 or 4 places where this money is being spent. The first is on new technology. It's time for the APTA website, the platformtennis.org website, to have a bit of a facelift. So we expect a new site to be launched sometime this summer. We also want to improve the tournament management system just to give all our members a better experience when registering for tournaments. We're also bringing a PTI the rating system in-house to the APTA off of Paddle Scores servers and creating a new data warehouse that we will manage. So technology is the first piece of it. Second piece is digital content. The APTA Tour is adding a couple more events this year. We wanted to try to stream everything that we possibly can. So our live streaming budget has gone up. And we also want to continue to invest and grow our relationship with My Paddle, which we think has done a great job with social media, with the videos that you've probably seen on Facebook and Instagram. And so our budget with them is up a little bit. In order to keep up with the growing needs of our membership, the doubling in our membership over the last 5 years, and just a bigger budget, we've brought on a couple one in an expanded role onto our staff. Jen Berenger, who's on the call here, who plays out of the Chicago League. Women's League, is coming on to be the project manager for our new website. And she's also going to continue on really getting the timing and cadence of our social posts a little more organized, a little more structured. So she's really going to be in a digital marketing role. Regina Feeney out of New Jersey Women's League. She's already been working with us this past season, but she's going to take an increasing role with everything on the financial side with us, particularly, the bookkeeping. And then lastly, we want to make sure that the most critical tournaments that we're really supporting, and that's team nationals and APTA tour events. We really relied heavily on volunteers, and these events are becoming so big and higher profile. We want to make sure that the right people are compensated to make sure these events can really continue to grow and be pulled off well. And that includes on the tour side, that's really the tour directors. Some of you may know Jackie Cameron and Karen DeJedlik. With 16 tour events this year, we think they need some help, and they also have just been doing this purely as volunteers in the past. And the board has decided that given the amount of time and effort that goes into what they do, we're going to start compensating the tour directors, and we're also going to need more umpires and umpire chairs just as the tour continues to expand. So that's really the investments that we're making to make sure we're delivering the best membership experience possible to everybody. And with that, I'll turn it over to John, who's going to go through some of the cash flow and balance sheet and grants and loans slides. John, are you there? Just got to unmute maybe. No,
thanks, Amin.
Yep.
Appreciate that. John McElhenney, treasurer here. Yeah, this slide I just want to talk about. It captures our operating surplus, our income, if you will, and our cash flow. And I think the important thing to orient you to the slide is the darkest blue boxes are operating income or surplus, and then the gray and yellow boxes are our court loans and grants from our funding and assistance we provide for developing publicly accessible and affordable facilities and court expansions. So you can see really on the left-hand side of the slide, we had several years of operating surplus and fundraising campaigns contributing to our cash flow, which allowed us in the middle of the page to have a robust funding of grants and loans by the gray and yellow bars here, which has been a very successful program so far. The key thing moving then to 22-23, the second bar from the right, we had operating income, a little $29,000 or so, and some loan repayments, and that was offset by commitments we had for funding grant and loan programs. So I think the key thing as we head into this budget that the board looked at is that with the investments we wanted to make in our infrastructure, expanding our capabilities and staff and driving a better membership experience, we have an operating deficit or loss of $95,000. That's the dark blue part of the bar on the far right. And then some loan repayments on the light blue. And then again, we have some commitments to grants and loans that we awarded last year. They'll be funded this year, and some additional projects this coming year. But the important thing here is that when the board looked at that operating deficit, based on several years of operating surpluses, and last year having a little bit of a surplus versus we expected slight loss, the board deferred the idea and concept that had been discussed about possible membership dues increase. And that really was to acknowledge the surpluses here and try and fund it out of operations. And that's what you're seeing. We're funding this investment next year in terms of our operating cash flow. The important thing after that is to understand, though, that at a almost $200,000 cash outflow, this isn't really a sustainable model for the following years to come. So we will need to be looking at ways to come back to a surplus in terms of our operations, or possibly with a jumpstart of a membership dues increase to be considered by the board. But we'll have to wait and see how the year progresses, what the initiatives are for the following year, and have those discussions. But again, just to recognize that we had 3 years of outflows here. If you look at the slide, another year at a 200,000 level, if we needed to do that type of investment, it just wouldn't be a sustainable thing for us to do. We can pass to the next slide, I mean. And this is how that operating annual cash flow comes together in our balance sheet of net assets, if you will. We add in here our endowment funds, which is the light blue bar. It's about $356,000 this past year end, fiscal year. And then you see our operating cash. The operating cash in the dark blue had typically been around the $700,000 level the last several years. Now the budget would project us to be down around $500,000. And that's where, we would be looking to see what are the options, what are the trade-offs and thoughts as we go into the subsequent year, 2024, 25, in terms of generating a surplus, investments that we need to make, and possibly looking at our dues structure. Speaking of the ability to fund grants and loans, just a little refresher. You may be aware the Grants and Loans Committee provides loans and financial assistance all across the country, help develop public access facilities and court expansions and large rehabilitations of facilities as well. And the exciting thing is nearly $1 million has been awarded in funding across, I think it's 68 projects since 2006 to get more people out playing in a more affordable way that the general public can participate. And, given with the growth we've seen in popularity in the game the last several years, our assistance has been there to help people build courts and facilities. Since 2019, $540,000 has been awarded across 18 projects, and that could help 32 courts come on board. And that mix was about $325,000 in grants and $215,000 in loans. This past year was a little less robust because last year was our record year with $215,000 awarded. There's a $60,000 awarded across 3 projects. But we look forward to continuing to help grow the game by making it more affordable and accessible to the general public. And through this program, we're able to pitch in and contribute a bit to local communities and clubs that are trying to accomplish that. Amin, over to you.
All right, so really just 2 more slides here to talk about. And really, these last 2 slides are just talking about tournaments. So let's start with tournaments for league players, or that are open to everybody. So this is a new slide for us, and we thought it was kind of interesting. We looked at every tournament that's hosted either on the APTA live scoring or on a paddle score site, a league site. And over the last 5 years, we've seen the number of draws, or the number of tournaments and draws, go up from 125 and 201 draws to 272 tournaments and 443 draws. And looking at distinct players, roughly 7,700 distinct players played in a tournament this past season, which is almost, a little over 24% of our membership. So we thought that was an interesting stat for everyone. And something we hadn't really delved into before. The highlight events for us really are team nationals. We had 750 men and women participate in team nationals this past year, up from 500 the prior year. That's becoming an increasingly popular event that we're hoping to continue to grow. We had 16 PTI national events with over 600 participants this past year. The mixed husband and wife event that was held in New Jersey this year had over 120 and was a huge success. And junior nationals had close to 200 participants as well. So just some quick highlights on the tournaments there. As far as the top part of the game, the APTA Tour and Cup, it was a very successful season. We had 14 events, culminating with Chicago Nationals. We had about $150,000 of prize money, all raised locally. The APTA did give $20,000 of prize money to 2 of the Midwest Grand Prix. This coming year, we're phasing out that money to the Midwest Grand Prix. They're raising a lot of prize money locally, so not necessary. We have a close to $200,000 being raised locally for tour events this year, and it'll be 16 events. Culminating with nationals in Boston this coming year. The only money that the APTA gives in prize money will be the APTA Cup this coming year, and that's going from $40,000 to $50,000. And the board approved that based on the fact that that number would be covered by sponsorship dollars that we'd be taking in. So the sponsors are obviously a big part of the reasons we get national sponsors is for the tour and the live streaming that we do around that. So we have a couple tweaks to the cup going on, which we think will make it a little more exciting this year, which you can read in the slide. But that's really it, and I'll turn it back over to Tiernan.
Yeah, thanks, Amin. So again, we had double-digit growth in our membership, which is fantastic. We have almost every league in the country sort of under the APTA umbrella. I think our board's done a great job of managing our expenses. As you know, we budgeted to within $10,000 last year. So we're in a financially sound position. I think the big picture here, as John and Amin spoke to, is that, this coming year, we've doubled our membership since 2016 or 2017, and we've been stretched pretty thin. I mean, I want to thank sort of our volunteer board that's gone above and beyond, our volunteers, tournament directors, our APTA staff. We've obviously been operating pretty thinly. So I think this coming year, we really want to invest in our technology and our staff so that we can provide you, our members, with a better experience. So, that's really our plan for this coming season. Hopefully you, all our members will see improvements in our website, our tournament management system, PTI, I don't know if you'll see that, but, on the back end, we want to continue to grow all the tournaments for league level players. I think our Slack channel that brings together league leaders is robust and active. So I'm really proud of what we've accomplished this past year. And I think this coming year is going to be, it's going to be a great year for the APTA. We're going to invest heavily in hopefully experiences that your members will appreciate. So that's really the end of the formal presentation. We can open it up for questions if anybody has any questions on this past year, plans for next year. As always, we are open books and you can always call us or contact us, but here we are. Wait, Larry, are you talking to us? You might be
everyone's muted, so you'll have to unmute yourself.
You have to unmute.
To ask a question. I'm going to unmute Larry here. Hold on.
Unmute Larry.
How's that? Am I on?
Yes, we can hear you.
When you redo the website, are we going to run any of our local tournaments on it?
So the plan is to continue to run PTI tournaments on local league sites.
No problem. Okay.
We will still post all of those on the APTA site with links directly to the league site. So PTI and local league tournaments will still be run on league sites.
What's your new tennis board?
Yes.
Are they going to try and improve that at all?
Yes, that's one of the off-season projects.
Let me take the word try out. Are they going to improve it?
Yeah, it's fair. It's certainly not as easy to use as having Isabel and Debbie helping on the back end. But yes, I do think there was one main thing that needs to be improved, and they are aware of it. And the plan is to start on that in June.
Okay, good. Are there going to be any changes to the system, tennis score system at all? Any updates that we'll have to learn as administrators?
No, there is going to be one new feature that I posted on the league Slack channel that's potentially available. So and that's a potentially meaningful one. So for areas that have multiple leagues, so for Boston, we have, let's say, 5 different leagues in Boston. Instead of right now, we have them on 2 different sites. We're going to have basically one homepage for the entire Boston area, and then a tab that you can go to basically for each league site. So there's 3 different men's leagues, there's 2 different women's leagues. They'll each have their own homepage, but there'll be one main page for the entire area. And so that's an option leagues and areas can choose to adopt, but you certainly don't have to. You can keep things the same way they are.
When you redo your website, are you going to have an area for pictures?
Jen, if you want to take that one.
You don't have a gallery. I mean, even
just introduce. This is Jen Behringer. She's working with us and she is the project manager for implementing the new site.
Thanks. I mean, I wasn't expecting to talk today, but yes, we will have for each individual tournament, there'll be a section that they'll have their own news gallery. So for every tournament that's run through the APTA, so I will have to check about the paddle score tournaments, but the idea is that every tournament would have its own news gallery, which would post the winners and any photos that we took at that event. And if you submit them, we will post them specifically to that page.
Okay, when you say we, you're talking about APTA, not guys like me.
We is me and Deb and Jill. Yes, the APTA.
Yes.
Jen's the gatekeeper, Larry, just heads up.
Oh, don't worry. Bring him on. Okay,
Question.
Yes, Marco.
Yeah.
Larry, are you done? Did
yes,
you
I am, Marco.
get all your questions in? Got it. I actually talked to Anne, I think it was in Chicago. I talked to her briefly, but obviously very busy and not, she gave me full attention, but I know that I just want to find out, one, the deadlines is, if I want to host a tournament, I want to host a PTI tournament that some of my members are asking. If I want to start a junior tournament, junior, whatever it is, by my area, because I'm not really close to Patty. I'm not really close to that summit area. Mine is, I'm in Bergen County. I want to, Lauren, Gebbia and I, and a few other pros are starting to develop the junior interest, and I'd like to bring it to our area. So one of each. And if we have to host an elite tournament, I'm happy. I'm open to suggestions. I'm open to like a date. Obviously, I just don't know when the calendar gets done, when the calendar gets prepared, and all that stuff. So this could be a conversation offline. Also, just let me know.
May I respond to that? It's Ann
Please.
Sheedy. Marco, just send anything to me. If there's something that I need to, check with Greg Morgan or on juniors or whatever, we can work with finding dates for you. Also, a lot of pros actually create local PTI tournaments during the season. So while I would prefer to have as much information to create the full calendar of events, by end of June, there's nothing keeping you from letting me know and say, hey, we want to run a PTI 45 plus for the women on such and such a date and a men's PTI, whatever. So you can do it during the season. Obviously, my preference is to get as much as we can ahead of time, but just let me know.
I'm just going to pipe in there because I actually think, Marco, it's a great point for anybody that listens to this after the call. So, running a PTI tournament is a very simple process. Like Amon and Juan in Fairfield County just started a bunch this season. Like it's something super easier. You can run it through, your local leagues. You can run it on paddle scores. You can do it yourself. Obviously, it's great to have, advance notice, but really it's so easy to run these tournaments. Yourself, like you don't need to host an elite tournament. I think the juniors idea is fantastic. I mean, we're sort of here, Amin, and to help you get you up and running, but it's not a huge time suck. That's what Paddle Scores has been really helpful with, running sort of local PTI tournaments. So specifics, get in touch with Anne, but if you want help, Amin's, I know, helped a bunch of people, including myself, like, all around the country, sort of league-based players start PTI tournaments in their area, and it's a breeze. Is that helpful at all? You know what I'm saying? Like it's not a huge process. If there's a date, Marco, I would first of all make sure it works for sort of people in your local area, because that's usually what you're going to draw from juniors, right? And then if you want to run a PTI based tournament, you can take a look at the calendar for Fairfield County, New Jersey. If Westchester does any, that should be up on the calendar. But really, it's just sort of, you can do them. You can have them start them out with 18 draws, 16 team draws. It's really up to you and what you think your courts and your time and your sort of community will support.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hey, Amin, I have a question.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, how are you? Good
Good.
to see you.
You too.
I noticed that the archives are missing on the NJ Flex or NJ MPTA website. Do you know about that? Is it some anomaly? Just looked at MIPL and it seems to still be there, but the NJ Flex is gone.
I know someone had emailed Paddle Scores about that earlier.
Okay,
So I'll look into it, but they can definitely be brought back.
okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
Any other questions out there?
Yeah, anybody else?
Oh, this is Larry again. Do you see any impact on pickleball as concerning paddle?
You get that question quite a bit. I don't think so. I think, for better or for worse, paddle right now has more demand. There's more demand to get on the courts than there are courts. And so, our problem is more of a supply problem and just getting more courts out there. In almost every area is court constrained at this point. And so if pickleball if pickleball were really a problem, I think we'd see court utilization down, but partly because of the timing of year of when pickle is played and when paddle is played, I haven't seen the impact. And, frankly, pickle's got 11 million people playing. We've got 100 to 200,000 people playing. They're going to coexist very nicely. The single biggest problem. Oh, I got to mute someone here. Hold on one second.
It's Marco. Mute
Marco.
Marco,
I'm trying to
mute
mute Marco.
yourself.
I'm like I'm trying to turn my phone off. I'm like having trouble with my phone. So
That's right. We'll mute you. No worries.
please mute me. I cannot open now. Please mute.
Okay, there we go. Mute all is not working. Let's see.
It's not working either. My phone is like frozen completely.
Sounds like
Sorry,
you're
guys.
head deep in a bag of chips, Marco.
I put Marco into the waiting room. Sorry, Marco.
Okay, perfect.
So I think I answered the question. Yeah. So at the board meeting that we had, we all recognize that the biggest constraint to growing the game, which is, a big part of our mandate, is getting more courts out there, and particularly public access courts. And, frankly, we're really stymied about what to do about it. Courts are expensive. There's only really 3 court manufacturers out there. We're all kind of hoping that there's going to be some sort of breakthrough technology that makes courts both cheaper, quicker to implement, easier on the body, but we haven't made any progress on that. And if there are people listening to this who have suggestions, please bring them to any of us, staff or board members, because that really is the sport's pretty much growing as fast as court builders can build courts right now, because the courts are filling up when they're built. And we think, part of the reason we're forecasting 8% growth for membership this year is that's about what courts are growing. That's really the bigger issue of that's for platform tennis. It's not really pickle. Any other questions? Now, if you have a question, just make sure you unmute yourself, because I muted everybody.
All right. Well, we're always open. Everybody's got our email and phone number, and we're here for suggestions, comments, questions. But I think next year's going to be a great season. I'm excited to see what we do again next season, because we've certainly made leaps and bounds over the last couple of years. So exciting stuff. Thanks,
Right,
everybody,
well,
thanks everyone for attending and listening, and appreciate all of your help out there, because I know you all out there do a lot. There's board members, but I know there's a lot of local pros, and I see Pam on there and league leaders. So anyway, we love our community and appreciate what everyone's doing out there. So thank you.
Thanks, you guys.